Good evening and welcome to the big story on NDTV Profit. I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. It is a familiar story that plays out each year, but one that stops us in our tracks and makes us think hard about how we are gambling away the health of our citizens. Today, once again, as has been for several past years, Delhi and its surrounding areas woke up to a toxic blanket of smog at this time of the year, as the air quality dipped to 500 in several parts of the NCR region. The deadly blanket of hazardous air has forced the administration to implement stage 4 of the graded response action plan. This emergency level measure is aimed at curbing pollution as the air quality has plunged into the severe plus category. So what is GRAP 4 and what does it entail? Well, under GRAP 4, several restrictions have been placed on vehicular movement. Movement of trucks has been restricted. Only trucks carrying essential goods or those providing essential services or those operating on LNG and CNG are allowed into Delhi. While non-Delhi registered light commercial vehicles are banned unless they are electric, CNG powered or BS6 diesel vehicles transporting essential goods. Construction and demolition activities, including critical infrastructure projects such as roads, highways and flyovers, have been suspended indefinitely. Schools have been instructed to shift to online classes for students in grades 6 to 9 and 11, while primary classes, which were already being conducted virtually, will continue to remain online. For corporate sector, officers have been advised to operate at 50% capacity, with the remaining workforce working from home. The central government may also implement similar work-from-home arrangements. Now, despite the measures that have been put in place, today we address 3 key questions. Number 1, why does Delhi gasp for breath every winter? Is clean air? That's the question number 2. Is clean air too much to expect in exchange for our hard-earned taxes? And why is India grappling with a permanent fix for its air pollution crisis? And joining me to discuss this further are Dr. Gufran Beg. He's the founder and director at Safar. Jagjit Sareen is a partner at Dalberg Advocates, and Dr. Rajesh Chawla, he's a senior consultant for respiratory and critical care at the Indraprasth Apollo Hospitals. Good evening, gentlemen. 3 of you, thank you very much for joining in.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Right, Dr. Beg, to you first. Now, Dr. Beg, Delhi's air quality, is often the topic of discussion this time of the year. For as many years that I can remember, perhaps 10 or more, it has been something that's discussed in studios and homes. And this year, things seem particularly bad. Tell us about the factors that have led to this rapid fall in AQI that we are seeing.
See, the point, winter normally it all happens in November. There was nothing new, but this time things, because of under the influence of the climate changes, shifted about 1 or 2 weeks later. It normally used to come in the first week of November, but it has gone to the 3rd week of November. But at this stage of time, there are a number of some part is external contribution, another one is the internal contribution. External contribution are something which is under different jurisdictions or many other things, depends on the weather. But what we really need to focus on a emission inventory, the accounting the sources of emission within the national capital territory. And out of them, we will see that more than 40% of the contribution is coming from the vehicular pollution. Delhi is one of those where 30 to 35% of the vehicle are coming outside Delhi state territory. So the point here is that whether it is a 30-40% of the outside other states than Delhi or it is internal Delhi, this is around 40% of the PM 2.5 contribution. And not only this, it is growing. So last 8 to 10 years, with Safar has analyzed the data, it's about 42% increase in emissions coming out from the vehicles. So I think we need to look on a long-term solution rather than, the parali is burning, other things. These are only temporary measures which has happened. It happens only last for, say, about a month or so. But I think we need to focus on a permanent solutions. There are 4 or 5 permanent local emission inventory, dust, fossil fuel emission because of the transport, biofuel emission because of the residential sector, then the industrial pollution, and then power related. These and then other sources, little bit other sources, brick clean or solid waste burning, and all those are there. But then major player which comes out is the transport sector.
All right. Now, just a follow-up question. Of course, these measures, the GRAP 4 measures have now been put into action. How soon can we expect some bit of relief, at least, to come in for Delhi and its surrounding areas?
Yeah, so firstly, a good news, because as I can see, the wind directions is changing to northerly, and Delhi winds are picking up. I think to my all probability, as per the predictions, by this time tomorrow, we will have a considerable relief. Relief means we'll get into very poor from severe plus. So that is what has become a norm now, that if you get into very poor, that itself is not good thing. It is a second, third stage. But by this time it will be. What else? What was your other question was?
My question, how quickly can we expect some relief now that GRAP 4 measures have been put in place?
Yeah, so now I have already answered about that, what you can do, but then the taking which you are making is that since now that GRAP 4 measures are implemented, that is, I don't think much related with the relief is not much related with the GRAP 4 measures. That will have some impact, but the major relief is coming because of the favorable weather.
Okay. All right. Do stay with us. Dr. Chawla, now, if we could bring you into this discussion, as you know, the AQI worsens, there are multiple organs in the human body that essentially are impacted. Now, give us some sense about the long-term and the short-term impacts of air pollution, particularly in children.
You know, the pollutants, we keep on hearing these months every year. So let me revise, we have particulate matter and there are gases. That's the PM 2.5 and PM 10. And there are gases like nitrogen dioxide, carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And there are ozone and hydrocarbons, volatile hydrocarbons. All these have impact. If you see the PM 2.5, people who are exposed for a long time, they can get chronic bronchitis, chronic obstructive lung disease. It has also been related to lung cancer. You will be surprised that now for non-smokers, lung cancer, particularly in women, has been 10 to 15% cases of lung cancer are related to air pollution. They say that it is a dose response relationship. That means the more time they are exposed to pollution, more chances of getting lung cancer. So this has a direct, and there are gases in the air and there are benzenes which have an impact, and they are precursors of causing lung cancer. And they are saying that probably the air pollutant, they cause genetic mutation in the DNA, which leads to the production of lung cancer. So that's the PM 2.5, and there is increased incidence of lung cancer. There are conferences going on and predominantly related to air pollution. Other cancer do occur. Similarly, the gases, the gases, every day we have an immediate effect. Like if I'm exposed to carbon monoxide, I'll feel dizzy. If you're working in Delhi, your efficiency towards the end of the day decreases, particularly you are working in the open. That's because of this gas. It causes dizziness, nausea, headache. Similarly, VOCs, which are hydrocarbons, they also cause the same. Nitrogen dioxide, this is an irritant gas. People get watery in the eyes if they go in the air where there is a lot of air pollutants. This causes irritation in the throat. And the other gas, which is ozone, that has also the impact in a similar. And all these result in, if you go by system wise, respiratory, chronic obstructive lung disease, exacerbation of asthma, that is, they get more attacks. And the other thing, because I'm a pulmonologist, which I'm noticing, the cough, which is taking much longer to get better now, and there is a 10 to 15% rise of respiratory patients in the recent past. The Cardiac, more chances of heart attack. Neurological, there are more chances of stroke, and even neurodegenerative disorders like the Alzheimer's. It is more, every system gets affected by the air pollution because you eat from and drink from the mouth, and the other thing which is very vital, you inhale every minute for 12 breaths per minute. So all this is going continuously in our body, and it has impact, and which has a long, the problem is the effect doesn't occur immediately. If I go in the open, it is not affecting me immediately. That's why people don't feel it. But year after year, we are now getting exposed to higher level of pollution, and many of us are going to get the impact of this in the coming years, and we don't realize that many of it is related to air pollution.
Yes, absolutely. As you're pointing out, year after year, people who have been living in Delhi have reported chronic cough. And not just that, we were playing out a survey for our viewers, which seemed to suggest that 81% of the families have reported at least one member suffering from pollution-induced problems. So that's a huge number of the total people, who have been visiting doctors. I'm going to come back to you because I want to understand from you how vulnerable are older people and pregnant women. I'll just come to you in a bit for that one. Thank you, Mr. Sareen, for waiting patiently. Now, Mr. Sareen, one of the problems that Delhi has is that it's not just pollution that's there in the NCR region, but it's also what impacts the neighboring areas have on Delhi. And that is what makes the pollution that we see there so much more severe. Now, for instance, there's stubble burning, which happens in Punjab, it happens in Haryana. There is also increased biomass burning that we find during, a more severe winter period that, begins in Delhi from, say, December end towards January. So these are some of the reasons, essentially, that Delhi finds itself at the receiving end year in and year out. Now, do you think that one of the answers to this problem is more regional cooperation, which we haven't really seen so far?
Well, Nipur, thanks first of all having Dalberg Advisors me to present our view on this. To your question, I think it's absolutely right. Delhi contributes about 30% of the pollution, while 70% comes from adjoining states, which we have started calling the Indo-Gangetic Plain, which stretches from Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, Delhi, NCR, and then stretches to UP, Bihar, and West Bengal. You take the whole region, and that's where, with similar topography, similar, the way air flows, the temperature patterns and sources of pollution, they cause this problem together. So there is no one state which can solve it together. We supported the World Bank in conducting a study looking at where the pollution, what are the sources, and we looked at 7 sources of pollution from, domestic burning of solid fuels to vehicular pollution, down to road dust to construction dust and everything in between, and about 80% contribution comes from these sources and across the Indo-Gangetic Plain. I think the approach we need to take is what Government of India has now embraced, which is called airshed approach. That states have to come together and solve this together, because no one state or Delhi itself could solve for it. There is a silver lining. About 2 weeks ago, Government of Uttar Pradesh approved a bigger package, which they call UP Camp, about 300,000 crores, including support from the World Bank, which is essentially taking the airshed approach. They would be working on issues like pollution coming from industries, power generation, vehicular pollution, agriculture, and construction and road dust, working with other states, and they are working on a coordination mechanism to look at these issues together. Just look at one more issue which you touched in the beginning, transport sector. Trucks, they contribute about 50% of the vehicular pollution, which is about 20% cause of pollution in cities. In Delhi, they are only 40%, 60% of truck vehicle coming are from outside Delhi. So we need to look at it in a coordinated approach. We've seen push from the government, both at the central and state level, to come together with this airshed approach being the center of our solutions. and working across the Indo-Gangetic Plains, all the states coming together. UP has taken a first stride at it, and I'm sure other states are working. We have seen messages coming from Haryana and Punjab working on these approaches as well. Thanks.
All right, do stay with us, all of you. I want to bring forth also what, people who pay taxes say. They seem to think that a large part of their taxes is going waste. Pollution leaves a deep imprint on their lives. Just listen into some of what the citizens have said.
सुबह सुबह जो ये हरियाणा में पराली जल रही है और अभी पिछले दिनों दिवाली गई है, उनमें बहुत सारे पटाखे छूटे, उसकी वजह से दिल्ली के अंदर जीने के हालात बहुत ख़राब हो गए हैं और पोल्यूशन बहुत ज़्यादा हो गई है। उसकी वजह से हमें सांस लेने में और आँखों में दिक्कत होती है और गले में दिक्कत होती है। तो सरकार हमारी सुन नहीं रही है प्रदूषण के बारे में। इनको कोई ना कोई उपाय पोल्यूशन के बारे में करना चाहिए।
दिल्ली में बहुत प्रदूषण है। हम लोग मॉर्निंग वॉक सुबह आते हैं तो हमें सांस लेने में भी दिक्कत आती है। जब मेरा ऐसा हाल है तो छोटे बच्चों का क्या हाल हो सकता है। बुजुर्ग आदमी, छोटे बच्चों का बहुत दिक्कत हो सकती है उन लोगों को सांस लेने के लिए।
और क्या दिक्कत होती है सर?
सांस लेने में दिक्कत होती है, थोड़ा सा चल गए तो धाप लगती है, ऐसा होता है, आंखों में जलन होती है। इसलिए सरकार ने कुछ तो भी कदम उठा के ये कम करने के लिए कुछ तो भी कोशिश करनी चाहिए, ऐसी राय है।
All right, Dr. Chawla, coming back to you on this one. Obviously, children and older people are more vulnerable to long-term effects of pollution. What, according to you, are the best ways for them to protect themselves?
Well, there is definitely the question you were asking earlier, the effect on pregnant ladies.
Yes,
which I
that too.
forgot because you were asked. There is a lot of impact on the pregnant lady. One is they become prone to more respiratory infections. And I have seen people who are asthmatic, their asthma gets aggravated and very difficult to treat. And then they take very long time to respond. There could be a preterm delivery. There could be a low birth weight. And there are certain studies which have said that there are some birth defects also can occur in a child if exposed to a very heavy air pollutants. And what one can do, as you said, the children, I think the best thing they've done is that they've closed schools, but I think sooner or later they will have to open. So if they're going, the window panes of the bus or whatever car, it should be closed. Children should be, if you want to wear a mask, N95 would be the best mask to do. And if you can avoid, don't take children or go yourself for an activity which you can avoid. You can do your shoppings and other things when the pollution level is better. Then suppose you don't have anything and you are getting exposed to very heavy pollution at some place, then you can use a wet hanky to put in front of your mouth so that at least some prevention could be there. Then if you can afford, you must get an air purifier at home and keep the windows of your room, of that place closed, because if you open, then within 10 minutes, the whole thing will come inside and it will be the same AQI level. So if there are patients in house, I particularly advise that they should have an air purifier because it clears almost 99% of the pollutants, pollens, insects, smokes in that environment, and AQI decreases. But it will be only effective if you keep the door most of the times totally closed. And when you come home, you must wash your face. You must clean your face, eyes with water, probably do gargles. And because there's an impact on the eyes, so if you're an adult, there is no harm in wearing the glasses because it will prevent some exposure to your eyes. So these are the certain things, but still you will be exposed somewhere to this high AQI somewhere.
Right, absolutely, and that is what is going to set off some long-term effects on people. I'm going to come back to you on that one. But Mr. Sareen, now the government has poured in a lot of funds into the National Clean Air Program. However, if I might say, the outcomes do remain somewhat limited. Several wonder what our taxes are going into, of course, but what do you think is the way forward? How can we battle this sort of air emergency that we see every year?
Yeah, your question is right, and we should look at the efficiency of use of public funds. I think at the last count of the 1.2 billion allocated as part of this, 15th Finance Commission, only 60% have been utilized. With the supporting the World Bank and Clean Air Fund, Dalberg advises, we are looking at results-based financing instruments to bring efficiency in both allocation of these resources, but also to bring more capital to solutions, and finally to work, more collaboratively with private sector where the solutions are going to come from. CI has done good work in terms of mobilizing about 140 CEOs for the CEO Forum on Clean Air. And collectively, we are looking at solutions which bring in private sector capital, private sector efficiency, complementing what government is doing. But just regulation and public funds won't be sufficient. We are looking at a very large set of problems and solutions which have to come across sectors. Some would be point sources, some would be very distributed sources. So we are looking at a large problem with varied set of solutions coming both from public and private sector. And maybe the use of results-based financing instruments could bring more efficiency in both raising money and allocating money for the desired results we are after.
When you say results-based financing instruments, what is it that exactly are you suggesting?
So think of it as issuance of a sustainability-linked bond. So, the Government of India has been issuing green bonds where the proceeds of the bonds are then deployed in supporting the projects which do reduce carbon, maybe wind power and others and others. And in the case we are suggesting, you could think of a Breathe Better bond where, let's say, the World Bank issues the Breathe Better bond. The money is then provided to the MCD Delhi, which then provides this capital to various solutions, from effective dust capture, the vacuum cleaners on the roads, to supporting the e-trucks, e-buses, to supporting more effective, cooking solutions for the rural areas. And the carbon reduction benefits and improvement in PM 2.5 would be then monetized to provide for the coupon rate of these bonds. And with this, you can raise more money, international and domestic money, and deploy this money to more effective use. Downstream, what you can do is you pay most of the money when you see results. So you are not upfront providing all the capital infusion. There are various instruments, impact bond, social certificates, which we have seen in adjacent sectors in health, education, and water, where you provide most of the money on seeing the results. You provide a bit of a working capital. So in summary, these results-based financing instruments help you raise more money, targeted money, to support these solutions. Downstream, you can use these instruments for efficient allocation of capital and also utilize the grant money for ecosystem building. Put together, I think we could put a same rupee or dollar for effective use.
All right, so these are perhaps ways that the government can incentivize not just the private sector, but also others to perhaps do their bit. Dr. Baig, coming back to you, you were talking about certain solutions that can be taken in the short term. Now, one of the things that the government, of course, has done is that the National Clean Air Program, it has been effective, in some cities at least. But what else can we do?
See, the major problem with the why NCAP is not that much showing the good results. And in fact, I am surprised to see that 80 to 90% of the funds are returned back by the states. The solution is very clear from here that first, scientifically, that be science-backed airshed approach, which do not see the political boundary. At this moment of time, money is going to the corporations, to the states, to the districts, which is, I think, not a proper proposition. And the most important thing, why 80 to 90% of the money is returned back, because majority of them are not aware. Although the air quality problem is very serious, but majority of the people in this, when the money is returned, they do not know how to spend the money, what are the sectors, so that there should be a science-based solution for that. And as I told, from the transport sector, I missed one particular point from a health perspective, that it is a high temperature combustion when you are running a fossil fuel, and there is a most toxic particles comes from there. Dust particles are mainly the mineral particles, and they are contributing only to the PM10 or bigger particle, which are not as toxic as PM2.5 or PM1, or even smaller than that. So the most important part where the fossil fuel transport sector is burning, where the carbonous particles as well as nitrate particles are there. And they are clinically supposed to be, Dr. Saab will be able to tell you even more, but they are supposed to be the more toxic. So this kind of a study is not there. In that particular case, even if you say PM2.5 has gone to 200, do not say that it is gone to 300 microgram per meter cube, but within 200 microgram per meter, if they are made up of poisonous, more toxic particles, which are coming from fossil fuel emissions, then it is much more dangerous than 300, which are coming from the dust, number one. Number two is, this is some a permanent kind of a threat, that dust, because of the slow down the speed is declined little bit in the terrain time. There is a lot of curb on industrial, but this is the only sector where I will see, transport sector, where the emissions are significantly increasing during this period of time. And the most viable solution at this stage of time, although there are some pros and cons for everything, but I see is a converting into the electrical EV. I think we need to do it. And first the target should be these bigger vehicles, which you are showing on the screen, which are highly overloaded, not maintained, and using the diesel. So I think we need to work on a electrical vehicle faster than what we have been doing now.
Right, and that's actually one of the parts that the government has put enough impetus on. They do have an EV policy that's in place. All three of you gentlemen, I'm really sorry, I'm running out of time completely. Thank you very much for joining us on The Big Story this evening.
Thank you.
Well, with that, it is a wrap on The Big Story. Thank you for joining us, but do stay with us on NDTV Profit for more.